It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, Royal Land Rovers sell a 650 horsepower Defender death machine. Bowler has a new rally car. Ike gets a new Land Rover. And a guy named Linus makes a screwdriver. And now, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Barris, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at thebarriscollection.com or follow us on Instagram at thebarriscollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Ike Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I'm the under-seat fuel filler to Steven's electronic fuel door. I'm the highly combustible host of podcasting, Ike Goss. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. Well, in the news this week, my favorite topic, former Queen of England, Her Majesty's collection of Land Rovers. Of course, she was a big proponent of the Green Oval and owned a ton of Land Rovers over the years. One of her Defenders, this is a pretty late model one, went up for auction recently, and unfortunately I didn't buy it, but I'll tell you what, I sure should have, because it recently sold at a Silverstone auction this past week, a couple of weeks ago, and it sold for no less than 31,000 pounds, which I think is actually that's a super good deal.
Seems like a bargain. Yeah, that wasn't there a Range Rover recently that was also hers that sold for like $175,000?
Yeah, I want to say there was. It was a lot of money. So,
what's the difference? The Defender is objectively a more interesting vehicle than a not so recent Range Rover,
right?
But not classic Range Rover. An intermediate Range Rover, if you will.
Exactly.
So why the difference in price, do you think?
I have no idea. I mean, this was a 2008, so that's a great year. 8-9 is a super good year for the Defender. So this was the TDCI car before they went to the traction control, emissions control, all the stuff. So it's the cherry year of that TDCI 2.4 liter motor. It is a 90-inch wheelbase, so, great car. And it's in the royal green. It's the Windsor green or whatever you want to call it. And apparently, this was one of the estate fleet cars, and this was one that Queen Elizabeth did actually drive. She would drive this one around to, I assume try to run over ducks and stuff with it, and whatever she did. Hunt.
Care visiting dignitaries.
Yeah, exactly. Hunt deer from the passenger seat. I don't know, whatever she would do from it, jump out and, wrestle geese, to the ground.
Through the drive up at the local schnitzel stand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Her Majesty's schnitzel stand. Yeah, so,
Well, if you're FOMOing about the purchase of that Defender, you may have an opportunity to redeem yourself. I recently got an Instagram message about another Royal Land Rover for sale, a Stage 1 V8.
Ooh, that is my favorite. I have a real soft spot.
I know you have a weakness.
I do. I have a weakness.
Also in Windsor Green.
Ooh.
Also in Windsor Green.
Yeah.
And, it's located in Florida. I think they're asking $65,000. So if anyone out there in Underpowered Hour land is interested in this car, reach out to us.
Yeah.
Maybe we can make a connection.
Make a love connection there. If you don't have a Stage 1 V8 yet and are looking to be the frustrated owner of a Land Rover vehicle, then reach out to us and we can help you out with that. Because let me tell you, parts, very difficult to find. And they are, they're hard to work on because they're almost like every other Land Rover, but they're different by several millimeters in a few different places, which makes them a lot of fun. So, but there are parts for them. There's great companies like, Design Engineering and folks that are doing parts for them.
It is an appealing car. The Stage 1 V8, you think about it and you're like, oh, classic vehicle with a slightly more modern drivetrain. but they sure didn't make it for very long.
No.
They were like, oh, let's get the classic part out of there,
That's right.
and let's just put coils and discs on it.
That's right.
It's kind of that intermediate step. It's the missing link. It's the Sasquatch, it's kind of the link between series vehicles and Defenders.
Yes.
And it's really doesn't quite have the charm of the series vehicles, and it doesn't have the bona fides of the Defender.
It's got everything that you dislike about a Series 3 and everything you dislike about a Defender all in the same car. in one car. Yeah. And I love it. I love it. It's just one of those things. It was the first model of Land Rover I ever owned. And so it occupies a special place in my heart. And I just can't, it's a joyful car for me to drive because it really takes me back to that first Land Rover experience, because it is, it's the LT95 gear shift and everything. Like it feels different than any other Land Rover you'll ever drive. Save a classic two-door Range Rover. It feels like driving a two-door Range Rover, but you're looking at a Series 3 dash. So it's a weird kind of, it's a weird kind of feeling. It steers like a Series 3, but it accelerates and shifts like a classic Range Rover. So it's sort of the worst of both of those things. So it's kind of great. But, our good friend Jeff from Seriously Series, which we are going to be doing some collaboration with here, hopefully coming up soon on our YouTube channel and on his YouTube channel. So keep a lookout for that. But he's just done a little bit he's just purchased a Stage 1 there in Australia and has walked through some of the bits in the front axle that are different. And it is that front axle that is going to get you, because the swivels are different and lots of stuff in there is different and hard to find. And like I said, there are folks, remanufacturing parts for it, but they're a little spendy. So there you go. If you missed the Queen's more recent 90, then ping Ike and maybe you get that Stage 1.
You can drive around with your corgis in her Stage 1. Yeah. It'd be great.
Now, if that is just a little on the underpowered side for you, either the TDCi or the Rover V8 powered Queen car, maybe you would be interested in a 650 base horsepower supercharged Land Rover Defender pickup truck. This might be the quickest way to die in a Land Rover Defender. Some folks have put a Whipple supercharged 6.2 liter LS3 V8 into a standard Defender pickup truck, a 110 high capacity pickup truck Defender. And it looks like it's actually not a high cap, it's just a regular cap. And they've done all the things that you want them to do. They've raised the suspension to an unsafe height and have done little to reinforce the steering or suspension, and have put in an engine that is fit for a drag car. And, nothing bad there.
I was going to ask. Yeah, I was going to ask, what modifications do you think they've made to this car to support 6 to 7 times the intended horsepower?
Yeah, from what I can tell, they've put a blower on the motor that looks like the outlet pipe of a small city's sewer system. They have done, other than that, it seems absolutely nothing. So it's just ready to murder you and your family in a fiery, fiery crash as you try to turn a corner at I don't know what speed this thing can get up to, but it's gonna be high. And they've done the thing where they've bolted some beadlock tires on that are high aspect ratio tires, right? So you've got big beefy off-road tires, which are of course known for their inability to stick to the road. It's got a PCS push button transmission, which are also not great for the kind of torque that those giant ass axles that would drive those tires are known to put onto drive shafts and stuff. And so, it just looks real interesting, and it would definitely be nothing I would ever want to drive. So,
is there a roll cage in this vehicle?
The interesting thing about it is it looks as though they've chosen not to put any kind of roll cage in. None of the traditional safety devices, roll cages that are easily commercially available for this car. You could just go and buy it from safety devices very easily and bolt it directly onto this car. None of that seems to be present. So I believe that you're relying on the truck cab roof, the Land Rover standard truck cab roof, to protect you in case of rollover. So
I noticed that in the article it says they had spent over $350,000 on this vehicle.
That's correct, yeah.
And it looks like they put the requisite diamond plate
Yep.
over the dents in the wheel wells in the rear bed.
That's right. Yeah, you have to do that.
They put some indoor-outdoor carpet in the back.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
And then I love that you can still see all of the dents from its previous working life in the bulkhead behind the seats there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You have to have, doing any, sort of modicum of body work is considered unnecessary when doing a $350,000 restoration, and putting in a motor that is, worth more than the GDP of most small African countries, doing a little bit of aluminum bodywork is certainly out of the question. So it's a good one.
Well, you should definitely buy this car.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I've always wanted to die in a horribly disfiguring crash. I mean, look at what it did for Niki Lauda. I think his career significantly improved.
Oof.
So,
too soon.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Too soon. Yeah. Yeah.
Too soon.
So there you go. Yeah. Speaking of very fast Land Rovers that have a significant investment in roll cages and fire suppression and are actually built to turn and stop, our good friends at the now Land Rover owned Bowler Custom Shop, Bowler Racing, of course, makers of fantastic Land Rover rally cars for, several decades now. They have come out with the 2024 Bowler Challenge car. And oh man, is this one cool. And I think, of course, the very best photos one can see of this 2024 Bowler Challenge car, no better seen than on our good friend Nick Dimbleby's Instagram. If you want to head on over there to Nick Dimbleby on Instagram, you can check him out right now. And oh boy, is this guy sweet. It is pretty cool. Man, I love the Bowler Challenge car. I love the original Bowler Challenge car. Don't get me wrong. Of course I did. It's incredible. But I have to say, there's something about the new Defender where it kind of lends itself to, getting bowlerized. It looks really cool. Maybe because it looks a little bit more like a car, right? Admittedly so. The old Defender getting, rally card out, it always looked a little bit like a work tractor, turned into a rally car. Because this one, the windshield's a little more raked, the corners are a little more sleek. This one really looks like a rally car. It looks like it's going fast, just sitting there. It's pretty cool. They've made a ton of improvements this year. The one big thing is that the roll cage has been significantly improved so that it's much easier to get in and out of the vehicle. They've been able to do a lot of things with the webbing on the inside of the roll cage so that ingress and egress of the vehicle is much improved over previous generations of this particular vehicle. They've done some things with the front fascia, apparently. They've improved some things on the windshield. Not a lot of this stuff you can't really tell. I just read the little spec sheet. They've changed the way that the co-driver compartment, the navigator compartment works. It looks like they've come up with a super cool bracket to hold the Terra Trip onto the dash. I'm actually going to inquire as to where you get that, because certainly the girls could use that in our car, in the Rebel Rally car, because they've got a really neat kind of way of attaching their Terra Trip. They've got, all kinds of fixturing for buttons and bars and all the sort of stuff on the inside of the car. And obviously they've changed out the stock Land Rover steering wheel for a specialty Bowler steering wheel. And one particular switch is they have, a bunch of mode switches in the center console, is you can put this car into Bowler mode. It's not clear what that does, but
yeah, I was just about to ask, what is Bowler mode? But I can't, reading this article, it's not entirely obvious, but I'm assuming it changes the, profile of the ECU.
Yeah.
And it probably does away with sort of emissions controls and allows it to make more power.
Yeah, I assume it makes the car sort of, not emissions or street legal anymore, street tuned, and instead is sort of makes it off-road or rally sort of specific. And, I don't know how comfortable a car like this would be to drive on the road anyways. I don't believe that it's not air sprung, right? It's coil sprung, right? I don't think these are air sprung.
I
don't know
would
the
be
answer to
surprised
that.
if it wasn't air sprung.
Yeah, you
but
think it is air sprung?
I would not be surprised if it were.
Yeah.
That way it would allow it to adjust to various ride
various
heights and so forth.
stuff. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I noticed
don't
that
know.
one of the changes that they made is that it has a navigator control unit
Yeah.
for the lights, wipers, and horn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think every car should have that.
Right?
The passenger should have control of the horn. Be great.
Yeah.
This vehicle, if you haven't seen it, it has sort of a gradient checkerboard pattern, sort of a racing theme on the side. It's based on a 90, I think.
Yep, that's right.
Looking at it,
Yep.
it's based on a 90. So it's got some, probably fancy carbon fiber wheels or something like that, or forged aluminum wheels. Can't quite tell, but it does look a lot like a rally car. The roll cage is pretty cool. I'm interested. It says it's built for the Defender Rally series.
Yeah.
Is it competing against only other Defenders? Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Really...
So what used to be the Bowler Challenge, they have for this year renamed it to the Defender Rally Series. Again, I think in line with, how Land Rover is sort of rebranding, or JLR is sort of rebranding all things in that, sort of family of brands to be Defender. Bowler is now simply this sort of customizing house for this sort of stuff. And the Rally Series is now the Defender Rally Series. So same thing, you'll go to Bowler, you'll sign up for the program where, depending on how much money you want to spend, you can buy the car, plus basically the, maintenance package and stuff, or you can buy the car, the maintenance package, and the team of folks to take care of it for you and bring it to all the races for you, etc. And that comes with the full season of racing. And I believe that's like 7 or 8 events around the UK. Now, we've been lobbying our good friends at JLR for years to bring this to the United States because, man, Ike and I and Jenna and Liza certainly would be the first ones to sign up for this. And I don't know if you noticed. You noticed there, Ike.
We have a price tag on this.
Yeah, it's $190,000. But I don't know if
that's actually cheaper than that LS Defender.
It is cheaper than the LS Defender, and this is a hell of a lot safer and probably goes a hell of a lot faster. And I don't know if you noticed, but this is a left-hand drive car. This steering wheel is on the left-hand side of this car. So I don't know if that's foreshadowing anything, but it certainly is interesting. And yeah, for that $190,000, by the way, that includes everything. That is all of your parts and maintenance. That is the car itself. And that's all the entry into all of the events. And, if you know anyone who's done, the Porsche has a similar program, Ferrari has a similar program, all of that sort of stuff, they all have these things and they are hundreds of thousands of dollars, to start with, right? And so for, to be able to get into a program that has a custom built race car, and this thing is certainly that, rally car, and all of the maintenance and all of the, pit crew sort of stuff. And there's different levels of that. Obviously, there's pit crew support, and then there's the full on, like they'll give you team members. That's obviously a little bit more expensive. But this is a huge deal, smoking deal, and an incredible car. So, man, I think if there's enough of a, grassroots lobby from here in the United States to push JLR to bring this event to the USA, they may just do it, or to North America maybe entirely. You never know.
How many times have grassroots lobbies worked with JLR? Just checking the record here.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Was there anybody that wanted the classic Defender to come back after 1993?
Oh, right.
Did they ask for that? Did people ask for that?
Well, at least this is the new Defender.
Did they?
At least this
did they bring it over? Did they bring it over back then? I don't know.
I mean, they did bring it back that one time, kind of for that 197 period. Like there's like 400 of. I don't know. We only had like 8 of these. There's not going to be that many teams. Like maybe 12 of them. Not that big of a deal.
It's just, how competitive is that?
Listen, this is
I noticed one of the events.
Special edition. So they love special editions.
I noticed one of the events is called the French Baja.
Yeah.
The French Baja. They get wound up when people use the word champagne.
Oh, that's exactly right. Well,
I feel like it's just a sparkling race course unless it's in Mexico. Unless it's in Mexico.
That's exactly right.
Baja,
that's exactly right. It's just a sparkling rally. Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Mexico's got to take that back, you know? That's not fair. That's making sense at all.
That's cringe.
Make any goddamn
Doesn't make any
sense at all. You know. Anyways, I'll be signing up for the Bowler Challenge or for the Defender Rally Series here, and it's going to be
I'll
great.
see you over there at the African Tokyo Rally.
At the African Tokyo Rally, it's going to be great at the Morocco Spanish Challenge. It's going to be fantastic. We'll be right in there. And there's just enough room behind that tire strapped in the back there to maybe also strap Nick Dimbleby back there to take some onboard photos. So it'd be great.
Well, those would be wonderful. Mm-hmm. And you can see the preview at Nick Dimbleby's Instagram.
Yeah, please head on over there because, man, as always, amazing photos. And I like that car so much. Speaking of cars I like so much, I hear that there is a new Land Rover that you have just procured. As you keep bringing a banana in from off screen as well. I realize it's breakfast time.
Would you rather have it on screen?
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I want from that banana actually, but yeah, it is interesting that
it's a delicious banana. Peak ripeness. You know, if we're going to talk about something on the podcast, it could be this banana.
Well, I'll tell you what. This time of year, Oregon is known for its ripe bananas. Certainly,
man. This one's legit. Mm-hmm. I don't know where it came from, but it is amazing. Mm-hmm. Speaking of amazing, I purchased a new Land Rover, and by new I mean very old. Of course. Yeah. It is a 1961 Land Rover.
Nice. Oh, that's a good year. That's not necessarily a common year that you find all the time. 61's sort of it's an odd one.
That's correct. Yeah, it is kind of an unusual one. It's kind of right on the transition between Series 2 and Series 2A. So it actually doesn't have that many Series 2 features, but it is by serial number or by VIN number a Series 2. So it has the Tex Magna turn signal switch. It has the lever vent lifters instead of the knobs. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a few Series 2 things, but you can tell they're kind of phasing those out. This particular example is pastel green, and it's a short wheelbase station wagon. Mm-hmm. And it's been a local car since I've moved here, really, to Oregon. And I heard about it. Somebody told me, oh, this guy's got this Land Rover in his garage. And I went to the phone book because this was 20 years ago. I started trying to buy this car. Yeah. So 20 years ago, I looked up in the phone book this gentleman's address. And I went there and there was no Land Rover. I didn't see a Land Rover, but I left a note in the mailbox. Yep. Okay. So he did not call back. He did not call back. And then maybe a couple years later, I was like, I wonder whatever happened to that Land Rover. And I went back and I left another note in the guy's mailbox. No correspondence. Did not get back to me. And then Jenna got her architecture degree and she joined the local architects professional association, the AIA.
Right.
And this guy was also an architect. So I was at an architecture event. And I met him and I was like, is there any chance you have a Land Rover? Because he had the same name as this other person. And he's like, yeah, I sure do. So I explained that I had left those notes and he was like, oh. So anyway.
Leave me alone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he was like, oh, cool. So we did some service work on his car over the years, you know. And he had got it from his uncle who had owned it since like the early 70s or late 60s.
Okay.
And it has a monogrammed F on the back.
Okay.
Right. And we were like, what's the F for? And he's like, I have no idea. I don't know. That was on it when we got it. I don't know. And he's like, it also has this really cool clock on the dash. And I didn't really think anything of it. So fast forward 10 years to last week and get a text message from him. He's like, I think I'm ready to sell the Land Rover. And I'm like, are you sure? I've been trying to buy this for 20 years. And he said, yeah, it's time. So I went over and looked at it and it's still in good shape. And I really like it. Very, very original car. So we made a deal and I bought it, but it came with some paperwork. So we found the original registration, the original registration to the original owner. That person's name, G.R. Ford Jr. And I was like, oh, Ford, that must be the F. That's monogrammed on the back.
Right.
And also, isn't G.R. Ford Jr. the name of Gerald Ford? Isn't Gerald Ford our former president? Isn't that his name? It didn't say what the G stood for, but it was like G.R. Ford Jr. and it was from Philadelphia. And I was like, oh, Philadelphia is not all that far from Washington, D.C. Maybe he had a a place there. So we did some Googling, and it wasn't Gerald Ford. It was another guy. It was another guy, George Ross Ford, who apparently was the heir to a plate glass conglomerate fortune.
Oh.
And at one time, this Ford guy, his grandfather, made this glass company who supplied all the glass for Henry Ford's cars.
Oh, cool.
And they're unrelated
Fords.
Unrelated. And they built a town in Ohio called Rossford, Ohio, which still exists today, and they named it after themselves. So these people were kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, fast forward 100 years or something, that was like in the 1850s or something, 1860s that they started the glass company. So then they moved it to Philadelphia. And then I think it was absorbed by Owens Corning at some stage.
At some point. Yeah.
But in the 60s, they were fairly wealthy. They bought this George fellow bought this Land Rover, had it monogrammed, seemingly had the wheels painted green. The rest of the car's original pastel green paint. The wheels are painted a darker green to match the monogram.
Ooh,
it looks like
nice.
And then he bought a clock for the dash, which is a Hoyer, clock. And it's super, super cool. Really nice. Still works. And it was in a box in the back. He had taken it off because he was afraid somebody would take it off of the dash. Sure. And so we ordered the special Hewer screws from Switzerland or whatever, which was amazing because they were less expensive than buying the same screws like locally here in town. But yeah, it's a really neat car. So we'll post up some pictures on the old Underpowered Hour. But 20 years of
finally did
about this Land Rover finally paid off. So play the long game. If there's a car out there that you're interested in, it may eventually pay off. But I've been driving it to work for a week, and it's, other than a few little things, it's really good.
Wow. There you go. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That just goes to show you that often, it is persistence that, that's what you have to do to get some of these cars. If you find something that you like and the person that has it, befriend them and form a relationship, and then, slowly wear them away until you can steal their car. Until you can steal their car.
What was I reading recently? It was some, I'm trying to think. It was a celebrity that had asked their wife to marry them like 7 times.
Right. Yeah.
It was like, a Cary Grant type of person or something like that. And they asked their wife to marry them 7 times. They got turned down 6 times. And finally he was like, I'm going to ask one more time, but that's it. This is the last.
This is it. This is it.
Just kind of like, all right. You wore me down.
I think the astronaut,
and they were married for like 100 years.
Yeah. Mike Massimo, the astronaut, the same thing. I think he applied to be an astronaut like 6 times or something, or 5 times. And
wow.
And finally on that last time, they're like, all right, okay, fine. You can be an astronaut. And he's
it's like a punch card. You're 7.
You can do it. You can do it. And then he's done like 12 missions or something. He's like one of the most missioned astronauts like of all time or something. And it like took him forever to get in there. So yeah, there you go. Persistence. That's the deal. So
if he does one more mission to space,
he gets the next one free.
He's president.
No, he gets to be president. Yeah, that's right. We could use that. That'd be good. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy.
Be better than our current options is what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Just boy. Oh boy. Speaking of better than our current options, how is my favorite Land Rover project you're working on, the Land Rover made of wood?
The body for the Woody is pretty well complete. So that part is done. So the coach building segment of this project is complete. So we've been using the bulkhead and rolling chassis to construct the body. Now it has to all come apart again into individual constituent pieces to have all the coatings done, the plating, the painting, all of that has to be done. The mechanical work, we're pretty far along on. The engine's rebuilt, the swivels and these sorts of things are all rebuilt. There's tons of new parts, rubber, seals, and gaskets and lamps, and all these sorts of things are waiting until the coatings are done. But the plating, the galvanizing, the paint work, that's what's on our plate right now. So we're excited. It's really coming along. So the body work,
can't wait.
It's all finished, done. So all we got to do, the glass is all done. It'll be.
And does that get painted, or does it get stained, or what happens to that wood?
It's like a classic wooden boat. It gets varnished.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the varnish protects it against the elements, keeps it from deteriorating. So it has a UV stable varnish that goes over the whole body. So the body is entirely made of English ash. So the structure is all English ash, and then the panels, if you will, that go between the structural elements, that's mahogany.
Oh, wow. English ash. That's like the Morgan is made of ash, right? Isn't the Morgan all made of ash?
It is.
Yeah.
Traditional coach-built cars are kind of made of English ash, and it's increasingly harder to find and get because there's apparently some very invasive insects that like to eat it and destroy those trees. So
It's delicious.
we have to buy the pieces of wood to construct the body. They're like salvaged pieces of wood. So it's a little tricky to get that stuff, but it's cool. It's really neat. And it's, I guess, I'm not expert on this, but it's the species to use for coach building cars.
Oh, man, I'm so excited.
Yes, I am starting to be kind of the expert on this. There's really not too many folks that are doing that.
That are the experts on coach built wooden Land Rovers.
Well, there's a few definitions for expert. One is, an X is a has been and a spurt is a leak under pressure.
Exactly.
And an expert is somebody who knows more and more about less and less until they know everything about nothing.
That's exactly right. I think you fit both descriptions, actually. So
yeah. I think that's probably true. In that sense, I'm definitely an expert.
In a nutshell,
And
we've been printing like crazy. Somebody gives us a 3D printer, and we've lost our minds about it.
I feel like getting a 3D printer is like rubbing a lamp and a genie comes out.
That's true.
And at a certain point, nobody ever thinks to print more printers.
No, I know exactly.
That's kind of what's happening.
That's kind of what's happened. Yeah. So we've gotten to a point now where we're going through and organizing drawers full of stuff. There's an open source project called Gridfinity, which is essentially a 41 millimeter by 41 millimeter grid system that you can lay in all kinds of different organizational pieces. We'll put a link in the show notes to take a look at that on Fangs or on printables. And you can really find a Gridfinity organizer for literally anything you can think of, from a utility knife to a soldering iron to screwdriver bits, anything you can think of. For instance, all of our friends at Chapman Tools, they actually have Gridfinity organizers for all of their tool sets, which is really cool. I'm not sure if they've done them themselves or if the community has done them, but so we're going through and we're doing all of our drawers. But in doing that, we realized, we actually need a larger 3D printer than we have. So we're actually getting rid of our Ultimaker, which is a $10,000 industrial printer, and we're getting rid of it. And we're actually giving it to the Warner Brothers prop shop. And we're going to get a giant plate, a sort of open source tinkerer printer to print some of these really large Gridfinity plates. Because you know what? We don't need the industrial manufacturing printer anymore. We're not really doing stuff like that anymore. We're not running those exotic materials and stuff. And so what we need now is just kind of like a tinkerer printer. It's very cheap. It's literally 1/20th the price of the Ultimaker. And we're just going to run off some really big parts. And we think with that, we'll be able to like print some dash pieces. We'll be able to print things like fender arches and all kinds of stuff, for the rally cars and things, mud flap mounts and stuff like that get broken all the time when we're out in the bush and stuff. So be able to easily replace them. And so we'll see. So that should be fun. And there's going to be lots of content on YouTube about that. The unboxing of the Carbon X1 from our friends at Bamboo Lab just went up. So if you haven't seen that video, please head over there and check that out. And if you don't mind, if you can like as well as subscribe and get your friends to like and subscribe as well. Liking, as it turns out, really important. That's how the old YouTube tells people that they should also be watching our videos. And so we really appreciate it when you do that, because it drives people to our content. And we're working on it. Like I said, we're working with the folks over at Seriously Series, and we're going to do some work with them. We're going to do a bit of a collaboration. We want to do something with Joe at a Lost Cause Ranch. He did some great commenting on our 3D printing stuff, and he's got a lot of fun fabrication stuff. He's just done a video where he found a plasma table, what looks like at the bottom of a swamp, and managed to restore it back to like new condition. And man, I have to say, he is a commendable individual when it comes to taking things that most people would just throw away and restoring them back to ship shape. So if you want to watch somebody painstakingly restore a plasma table, Joe's your man, and the Lost Cause Ranch channel is great for that. But speaking of restoring things, if you're on the market for a tool to restore something, do we have a tip-top tool tip for you today? One of what I think is the greatest multi-use screwdrivers on the market today. Some good friends of mine, well, of course, Abigail, who you all know, but also John Reed, who is a colleague of mine at Her Majesty's HBO. is from a YouTuber that has a channel called Linus Tech Tips. Not our Linus, unfortunately. Linus has a channel called Linus Overall Tips, but this is Linus Tech Tips, and Linus has a screwdriver that he has painstakingly designed to be little more than the ultimate screwdriver ever created by human beings. And it really is. This thing is absolutely incredible. So unlike the Chapman screwdriver, this is a full-sized handheld screwdriver. It has, much like the Chapman tools, actually very specialized bits. They're super magnetic. It has knurling along the shaft of the screwdriver so that you can one-handed operate it. It has the most teeth of any ratcheting screwdriver I've ever experienced in my life. So the smallest movement of your wrist will actuate the ratcheting of this screwdriver, stores all of its bits in the handle and that sort of stuff. But more than anything, I think it's just like a super, super well-made hand screwdriver. And I'm of the mind that, on my tool cart that's with the cars, I have a set of Klein tool screwdrivers that I like to have the individual screwdrivers that are one for every size of Phillips or of flathead, because I'm prying with them and I'm doing whatever with them. But over on the workbench where, I'm rebuilding a carburetor or I'm doing whatever, I do like to have that multi-bit screwdriver. And I like that to be ratcheting because I'm working on small stuff and I don't want to keep going to the drawer for different screwdrivers. I want to kind of have that one with me. And I do like the ratcheting. This is simply the highest quality one that you can acquire. It is an absurd amount of work has gone into designing this thing. So this is, again,
I'm reading about it now.
Yeah.
I'm reading about it now.
Great.
And it's available on the LTT store. Is that
That's right?
Linus's Tech Tip, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's right. LTT store.
It's available in lavender.
Yep.
To match your, looks like a Nintendo,
Super
Nintendo gaming machine, Super Nintendo, which I didn't expect that.
Yep.
I didn't expect that. But when you have the perfect screwdriver, I guess you can focus on those kinds of details.
That's right.
But it also comes in just black, and then I think a black and
black
orange.
And orange. I have black and orange. Yeah, and yeah, it's great. I mean, it is made out of a really hard composite plastic, so it feels really good. It is balanced perfectly. You can balance it on your finger. It feels really good. And the ratcheting mechanism, I mean, they put a huge amount of work into it. And you can put an insane amount of torque onto that screwdriver. Unlike, if you get one of the ratcheting screwdrivers from Lowe's, my problem is you can always make them jump, right? You can always put enough torque on them that you'll skip teeth. And that's...
I'm very, very critical of screwdrivers. I use screwdrivers every day, and I have 400,000 of them for each of the 400,000 different types of screws that we encounter working on old vehicles. Because, nowadays screws are relatively standardized, right? And the way screws are made and the types of screw heads are pretty well standardized. But back then there were no standards.
None at all.
And so everybody had different angles, for their Phillips or Posi drive designs, and everybody had different slotted screws and widths and, ratios of widths to diameters and these sorts of things. So I feel like when you're working on old stuff, you need tons of different screwdrivers and different screwdriver types. So I'm curious to try this one out. We'll have to get them to send us one of these to give it the old real world test.
The old Pangolin approval. So that's lttstore.com if you want to check out. There's lots of cool stuff on there as well. It's lots of like tech nerd stuff, but that particular screwdriver I think is just universally handy to anyone who turns screws, and we certainly use it frequently around here, and it is tough and great. I wouldn't try to pry things underneath your Land Rover with it. It's not really designed for that, but if you're fiddling on tiny little bits, like I say, you're jetting carburetors or you're taking apart distributors or things like that, this is a great tool for that, because it's a nice precision, really well weighted, and it is tough and will last forever and ever and ever and ever. And
I'm also seeing that it comes in a variety of other colors, a rainbow of other colors.
A rainbow of other colors, and stubby.
And
mini.
$10 extra for a solid color.
It is. It's $10 extra for a solid color. And there's a mini one too.
Why? I want to know why. Yeah, stubby.
I don't know.
A stubby.
You can also, for a little while, you could have it molded in a custom color. I wanted to get a rainbow one made, but I missed the boat on that. So
next time,
maybe we'll work with Linus. We'll see if we can't get an Underpowered Hour edition screwdriver. Maybe
Linus meets Linus.
Linus meets Linus. And one thing we didn't mention is this is a $70 screwdriver. Oh,
89 if you get the solid
if you
color.
get the solid colors. Yeah. So it seems like a lot of money.
Be prepared.
It is a lot of money, but it is definitely the last ratcheting screwdriver you will ever have to buy in your entire life. So it's a Snap-on tool level kind of investment, but it is also definitely a Snap-on tool.
It's also huge. I'm looking at
It's
the
giant.
pictures, and there's
Giant.
a person with this, that actually pictured those, so it's you can kind of see the scale. And either this person is tiny or the screwdriver is huge. So you could probably put a lot of oomph on this thing.
It's quite big. Yeah. It's the size of, if you're looking in your like Craftsman or your Klein tool or whatever, it's the size of the biggest one. So it's a big boy. Yeah, it's a big boy. But again, the funny thing about it is because it's so well balanced and the magnet on the end is so strong, it feels like a smaller screwdriver. You feel like you have a really good precision with it. So yep, great screwdriver.
I thought you were going to say it could be a substitute for a throwing knife.
Could be. If
so
you need to
well
defend
balanced.
yourself in a fight, I think it could also be used for that. So there you go.
I'll be damned.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. And again, we're working hard around the clock to bring you the latest in Land Rover news. But please feel free to hop on over to the Underpowered Hour store. We've got all kinds of great stuff up there. Like we said before, head on over to that YouTube channel. We're working hard to bring you some great content over there. If you like Freelanders, and who among us doesn't? Eliza's got her series on the Freelander up there. We've got forward control videos up there. You can follow us along there. And both Ike and I are going to start doing walkarounds of different Land Rover vehicles that are in our collections, in the workshops, maybe just random people we run into at the mall. Who knows? But start looking out for those as the YouTube audience has demanded it. And, so when they demand, we will respond. So look forward to that. Until next week, Ike, we'll see you then.
See you on the trail.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Veris, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Veris. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.